Wow, that is the only thing I could say after seeing The Night Comes For Us, a 2018 Indonesian action film directed by Timo Tjahjanto and starring Iko Uwais, Taslim, Julia Estelle, and many other well-known Indonesian actors and actresses. Now, this is a movie that I did not see on my radar. I just happened to see it on Netflix, and just the fact that Iko Uwais is in there, I automatically thought of The Raid 1 and The Raid 2 and many other movies that he's been in. And I'm so glad I watched this, because this movie was absolutely amazing. It was brutal, it was vicious, and it was so much fun. And I just cannot believe that this movie did not get more hype, that it didn't get more recognition, at least here in the United States. Now, this movie is a little bit different from other movies that I've seen, specifically with Iko Uwais, because most of the time Iko is normally the hero, and in this case he is not the hero. He's actually the bad guy, but the main anti-hero is actually Taslim, who actually plays a character called Ito, and Iko Uwais plays another character called Adrian. And the general story is Ito, who is part of this very elite triad group, decides not to execute this little girl, and because of that it leads up to this whole story. And that story is very similar to other Indonesian action films, specifically Raid, because it has a lot to do with gangs, corruption, and family, and so those elements are still here. But what is great about this movie is the action. The action is so brutal and intense. And the thing is, in this movie, it starts a little bit slow at the beginning, but once the action starts, it is non-stop, and it's like almost a horror flick, because some of the action scenes, they're just so violent and bloody. Like, for example, when you see the butcher scene, it's just like, what am I watching? You see somebody with a bone that goes through their head and neck. And later on, there's a lot of scenes inside buildings, which is very reminiscent of The Raid, but it just does so with a lot more viciousness. And if you remember seeing, these other Indonesian films, the fights, just when you think they end, they keep going and going and going, and in a really good way. And then another aspect of this movie is other side characters. There are these two female assassins who are just crazy, and then there's another assassin which kind of comes out of nowhere, but it doesn't take anything away from that. And there's so many moments like that throughout the movie, and even the characters themselves, especially with Adrian, Ito, and their family, you really even care about some of these characters, especially this character named Bobby. I really liked him in this movie. And the movie just overall surprised me in so many ways. There were so many great moments. And the story itself is really not anything new, so I don't think you really want to watch it for the story. You want to watch it for the action. And then there's also a lot of group battles, and I think if you watch a lot of Indonesian films, you'll notice that that is a staple of their actual way that they shoot movies. And also a lot of knives and machetes. And then, when you get near the end of the film, and then all of this kind of like all comes together, the action is just absolutely crazy. And the final battle, it's almost exhausting, and it is just so brutal that I don't know how anybody would actually survive. And that's the great thing that I love about these Indonesian films, because when they fight, it's like life or death. This is something that would really happen, whereas it's not like movie fighting, which is actually something I really appreciate about this movie, because it is brutal, and there's always a point where you get this huge amount of tension, because either one of the characters, they could probably die, because the fights are so vicious and so brutal, and they're not like these invincible warriors. That's something that I love the most about these Indonesian films. And so overall, without giving pretty much anything away, and at the same time, like I said, the story is not the main focus of this film, it is just really amazing action. You're gonna love it, and you're gonna wish to see more of films like this. And I really gotta credit everybody involved, and even the director of this movie. The last film that he did was actually an American film. I think it was Mile 22, and Iko Uwais was in there as well, along with Mark Wahlberg, and it didn't look interesting to me. But the last Indonesian film that he did was actually Headshot, which also starred Iko Uwais, and that was a good film as well, but this is way better. And in terms of like my favorite Indonesian films, I'd still place this like maybe third behind The Raid 2, which is my favorite, then The Raid 1, and then this film. And so those are my thoughts on The Night Comes For Us. If you haven't checked it out, watch this movie. It is just so amazingly awesome. And if you had any other thoughts, whether it is this movie or any other action movies that you've seen so far, be sure to leave in the commentary below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, share, like, and subscribe. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, if you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com. And I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.